Welcome to the Place to Be Free podcast. I'm your host, Martha Blessing. I help anxious wanderers and spiritual seekers transform the energy and consciousness that has created their symptoms, pain, illness, and disease so they can take control of their mind and body to create the life, freedom, and well-being that they desire. I'm driven by the purpose of illuminating the potential in others to live their personal power by reconnecting them to the healer and truth within themselves. I'm widely known as a leader in quantum field mind-body medicine and spiritual self-transformation. For those that are serious about growing, healing, and expanding their consciousness, I'll lead you out of the disease and spiritual amnesia and into self-love, personal power, and living your fullest expression and greatest potential. To explore my work or connect with me and receive some free tools to get you moving forward on your path, you can visit marthablessing.com/free stuff. And if you feel called to support the podcast, please leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. The more support we receive, the more people we can reach. And together, you and I can create positive change in the world. I so appreciate your presence here, and I'm honored to serve as a guide or companion on your path. Now, on to the episode. Welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, I am unpacking the idea of taking the path of least resistance on your healing path. And what does that look like, or what might it have looked like up until the time that you've listened to this podcast? I have a very dear friend who has also been a client on and off for many, many years. And he studied A Course in Miracles. And many, many people obviously have. It's a very, very well-known book. And a lot of people have found a tremendous amount of peace and healing by studying A Course in Miracles. So by no means do I want to discount that work. However, there is a concept and there is a principle that my friend has adhered to, and I have not found that it is in the best interest of anyone who is trying to heal physical ailments. And I'm going to tell you what it is and why I believe this way, because it is important. The concept that he and I have discussed many, many times is taking the path of least resistance. So when you find yourself, now I don't disagree with this in other circumstances, right? Like if you are driving down the road and somebody has road rage, and rather than engaging with them and getting into a big scuffle, the best path is the one that is the least resistance. In other words, go with the flow, let them have their anger, let them do their thing and be crazy. Obviously, protect yourself and your safety. However, to not get into a big engagement around all of it, right? Or a family member that is maybe not respecting your boundaries. The path to least resistance would be to restate your boundary, and if they can't adhere to it, walk away. Okay, that makes complete sense. So why am I picking this apart when it comes to actual physical well-being and healing? Here's why. Let's say, I'll use myself as an example. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that I was moving through some challenges with my teeth, healing my teeth. after going to the dentist and then asking for a referral to the periodontist, I sat in the periodontist's office. They did a bunch of films and x-rays. And the dentist, the woman said, I don't think you should get a root canal. I think you should pull the tooth. And this is what we should do. And it was a long, drawn out monologue about bone grafting and implants, all these other things. The path of least resistance would have been to follow every word that she said. And if I did that, I would have been looking at thousands of dollars. I think it was about $6,000 she wanted me to spend. And just the idea and the thought of bone grafts in my mouth, and the mouth is so vascular, right? All of that work and blood and inflammation, not being able to eat, all these things, right? Like that to me is not the path of least resistance. But what is so important about this, and I'll continue to use this example, is that I chose not to do the recommendations, and I chose to tap into divine mind, into intention and intelligent substance, because I do know that the body does know how to regrow bone. She said to me, well, we know that once there's bone loss, we can't regrow bone. I thought to myself, just be quiet, Martha. She's not ready for you. And that was the path of least resistance, because I did not need to get into a dialogue with someone who could not understand where I was coming from. The body does know how to regrow bone, because when we go to the doctor, if I break my arm, then I go to urgent care. The doctor puts a cast on my arm, but he doesn't heal the break. My body heals it. Intelligent substance and consciousness heals that break. The body starts regenerating and growing new osteoblasts and osteocytes, and it does know how to granulate new bone and new tissue without us having to really do very much except put the cast on to keep it in the right place. So for her to say to me, we know we can't grow bone, the path of least resistance at that moment in time for me was to not argue with her and to go about what I know to be true and valid, is that my body knows how to heal itself. And so that's exactly what I did. I looked at diet, I did some research, and I also went to essential oils and salt water and all sorts of things that I knew would heal the tissues and the gums and the teeth. Now, the other piece of this is that I'm looking at which tooth and teeth they are. I'm looking at what side of the body. I also discover what meridian it's related to, what organs, and it happens to be small intestine. And then I'm examining what are some of the metaphysical and the mental and emotional attributes related to small intestine and to this meridian, because they are all correlated. And being who I am and knowing what I know, I work in the subconscious and I work in the field of quantum holographic healing and coherence healing. So I can see the energetic loop that is happening between another symptom in my body, the left side of my arm and my neck and my shoulder, and the right side. And I can see an infinity and an energetic loop. Now, here's where I'm getting into the meat of all of this about the path of least resistance. If I listened to what this dentist had to say, this specialist, and I just did what she wanted or what she recommended, it would be the easier route. There's no question. It would be easier. I don't believe it would be better, but it would be easier. And in that moment, I would be giving away all of my power and all of my internal wisdom and knowledge. And energetically, I would be altering in my body and losing my power. The path that I chose, when we talk about healing and the cause being just under the surface in the subconscious mind, which is where all illness is created, we know this. Ayurvedic medicine tells us that the cause of all illness is a failure of intellect. We are using our conscious mind to program our subconscious. And how we do that is we constrict our energy. So I have a pattern within me that is part of my soul's plan to overcome and to correct. It is a frequency, it is a consciousness, it's an agreement that I made when I was a child and I didn't know any better, related to the core wound. So I could go on all day reparenting my inner child, but that doesn't change the frequency and the agreement that was made at that level that is stuck still in my body, in my cellular memories, in my frequency. Now, my wheelhouse is I know how to get at these. I know what is going on. I just have to transform the energy and the consciousness of it. It's not hard, but it is work. You do have to show up. So I have to show up each day and do the reprogramming. I first had to be aware of the agreement and the core wound. Now, for a lot of people, they just don't want to do the work. And in that case, yes, the path of least resistance would be to have the procedure done, which is what most people choose. I can go back to 10 years of daily chronic pain and having 3 back surgeries. If surgery was the answer, why didn't the first one work? It wasn't until I excavated the energetic pattern and the agreements that I made related to the trauma of the abuse that I was able to free myself from the pain. The surgeries didn't do it. They did help alleviate some of the situation, but they didn't correct the problem. Now, in the case of my friend who is choosing what he thinks is the path of least resistance, he's actually choosing to give away his power. And I'm not judging it in any way because we've been programmed to this. He's already had 3 back surgeries. He's had a spinal fusion. And now they're saying, oh, we think there's more problems. And so it appears that the path of least resistance is go with the surgery, go with what the doctors and the medical say. And that is true. Because if he's going to fight for his well-being and to avoid more surgeries and possibly being in a wheelchair, fighting your subconscious mind is the path of resistance. Because let me tell you, the subconscious mind is insidious. It will fight you at every turn. I'm not going to say that I did not have doubts about my teeth. No, at this point, I have succeeded. And I have healed what was really quite an extreme case. But the gums are healing, the teeth are healing. There are a few times that I really had to talk myself out of doubt and off the ledge about whether or not it was possible. And so it is, when you're choosing this path of healing on a deep, deep level, and you are choosing the expansion, you will hit resistance. You will hit your subconscious mind. You will hit the patterns that are in you that you aren't even aware of, that have caused the energy and the thoughts and the consciousness to create the illness. And you will have to fight it down. You will have to reprogram it. And quite honestly, they are so deeply embedded in our culture, our medical culture and collective is all fear. Every single bit of it is fear. I almost bought into it, and I know what I know, and being what I've been through and what I know, I almost bought into it. When you're in this situation, you have to call upon spirit. You have to call upon intelligent substance, God, source, whatever you want to call it, divine mind, because it is a higher power. It is a higher frequency. It is in you, as you, through you, in every aspect of life and living. It is there. And when you leave this body, it's still there. But we have not been taught that this is what heals, that this is what creates, that this is where our personal power is. Our free will is to use our mind to program the subconscious. The subconscious does not discriminate. It takes whatever program you give it, and it creates from that. So ask yourself, what is the program? What have you thought and felt and believed about yourself long enough to have programmed it into your subconscious? And in the case of my friend, he did a breakthrough session with me. He did a core wound agreement breakthrough session. We found out the exact place where he was 2 years old, where the core wound took root in his being, in his frequency, and then all the agreements that he has made along his lifetime to uphold that. But he made it when he was a child and he didn't know any better, out of fear and out of trying to take care of safety and survival. But now as an adult, he can choose differently. He can see it and he can choose differently, and he can undo the agreement and undo the frequency energetically in his body, in his being, in his consciousness, and create now what it is he really wants. It is a big choice to make. I'm not going to lie about that. And it can be scary. There's no question that it can be scary. I've done it. I did it with cancer. I did it with my back. And the medical community does try to scare us. But remember this, they are practicing what I call CYA medicine, cover your ass. And if you show up to an office, any kind of medical office, with a complaint, they are legally bound to give a diagnostic code, and they can treat according to the standard of care and standard of practice for that code, and that's it. And if they don't do something, they are liable for malpractice. But there is no wiggle room and there is no gray area in that. If they want to make money, which they do, they need a code and they need to follow a standard of care that the insurance companies say they will pay for. That's it. That's how medicine works. So when they see something on my friend's film, they have to do something, because he could turn around and sue them for malpractice later on if they don't say, oh, well, why didn't you see this before? You see how this works? So back to the path of least resistance. Being your own advocate, being your own healer, and working at this level, this high level, this next level of well-being, taking back your power and taking control and healing from the inside out, you will hit resistance. You will hit resistance. So it is not always that the path of least resistance is the best path. Sometimes things are worth fighting for and going up against the resistance so that you can be empowered and understand the potential that is in you so that you can heal from the inside out. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Place to Be Free podcast. And if you liked what you heard and you want to know more, go to marthablessing.com/free stuff.